All right, so get this. A team just unearthed a fossilized dinosaur nesting ground.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so well preserved that they can actually map out the social structure of these ancient creatures.
Wow.
It's like stepping right into Jurassic Park, minus the whole running for your life thing.
Right.
And it got me thinking about our deep dive into paleontology with these RoleCatcher guides.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like there's way more to it than just, digging up bones.
Absolutely. This discovery just shows how paleontology is all about piecing together entire ecosystems, not just individual creatures, it's like detective work, but with clues from millions of years ago.
So we're talking footprints, fossilized plants, even those tiny microfossils, right?
Exactly. And those microfossils, even something like, say, ancient pollen, can totally change your understanding. Like, you could use them to figure out what the climate was like in that nesting ground, why certain dinosaurs thrived there. It's that interdisciplinary approach that makes the field so exciting, bringing all those different fields together.
Okay, so it's not enough to just be obsessed with dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
You need a really strong, solid science background across different areas.
Yeah, it's the foundation for sure. Like biology helps you understand how life itself evolves, right?
Yep.
And geology, that reveals how the earth is structured. And then ecology shows you how how life and earth intertwine over, millions and millions of years.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
you can't really study ancient life without understanding the planet itself. It all
Yeah.
kind of fits together.
Exactly.
So the RoleCatcher guide mentioned something I found super surprising, though.
Okay.
It talked about customer service.
Uh-huh.
What does that have to do with digging up fossils? I don't get it.
Well, it's all about communication, right? Like, imagine you're trying to get funding for your next big dig. You have to convince people why your project matters. You need to explain complex science in a way that's, well, engaging. And you have to build those relationships with potential donors. All those are customer service skills.
Wow, I never thought of it like that. It's like you're pitching a documentary, but instead of a film crew, you're assembling a research team of scientists.
Exactly. Just like a good documentary needs a compelling story, right? Paleontologists need to communicate the wonder of what they're finding, whether it's to other scientists or to the public.
Speaking of those discoveries, let's dig into the nitty-gritty of those RoleCatcher guides. They break the whole career path down into 3 main stages. Am I right?
They do. You start at entry level, then you move up to junior paleontologist, and then finally you reach at the peak, the senior paleontologist. And each level, well, it demands more expertise for sure, and you get a whole new set of responsibilities.
Okay, so for someone just starting out, that entry-level paleontologist, what are they actually doing? Is it all dinosaur bones and glory right off the bat?
Well, not quite. Think of it more like laying the groundwork for, those big future discoveries. Like, you might be helping out senior paleontologists with field work, carefully collecting and documenting those fossils.
So less Indiana Jones, more like Indiana Jones's assistant who's meticulously cataloging everything.
Yeah, pretty much. But that's how you learn, right?
Right.
You're also prepping those fossils in the lab, which, I'm not going to lie, can be pretty painstaking work.
Oh, I bet.
But it's crucial, for revealing all those hidden details.
So it's that attention to detail that separates just finding a cool rock from finding something that's actually scientifically significant, like a fossil.
100%. And as you get more experience, you'll move up, to that junior paleontologist role. And that's where you start, well, getting your hands dirty, so to speak.
Okay, so less about literally brushing away dirt, more about really digging into the data.
Yeah, you got it.
What does that look like?
Well, you might lead smaller digs, start identifying and classifying your own finds. This is where that specialization we talked about earlier comes in. You might find yourself, drawn to the microfossils from that dinosaur nesting site.
Oh, interesting. So instead of studying the big dinosaurs, you're figuring out what was on the prehistoric menu, what they were snacking on.
Exactly. You got it. And from those tiny clues, you build up this bigger picture of how that whole ancient ecosystem worked. And junior paleontologists, they also start contributing to research papers, presenting at conferences, really making a name for themselves.
Okay, so climbing up that academic ladder, getting your work out there.
Yeah.
And then comes the peak, the senior paleontologist. What does that top tier look like in the field?
Think of it like this. You're conducting your own prehistoric orchestra. You're designing these big research projects, and you're often the one going out and securing the grants, the funding to make it all happen.
So those customer service skills from the early stages, those are still super important, even at the highest level.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. You're also mentoring, those up-and-coming paleontologists. You're publishing your findings in, all the prestigious journals. And maybe, just maybe, you're inspiring a whole new generation to fall in love with dinosaurs.
Or microfossils.
Or microfossils, exactly.
Now, we touched on this a bit earlier, but the RoleCatcher guides really emphasize specialization. Like, it's not enough to just love all things prehistoric. You really need to find your niche, your specific thing.
Right, and it's a super competitive field, so finding that area of expertise, it's crucial. Let's say you're fascinated by that nesting ground we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
You could become the expert on dinosaur parenting behaviors.
Oh, wow. Dinosaur parenting, that's a book I would read.
Exactly. Or maybe you're, super intrigued by how those dinosaurs fossilized in the first place, That could lead you to specialize in taphonomy, which is basically the study of how things fossilize.
Oh, wow. So one person's out there digging up the bones and another person's figuring out how those bones became these rock-hard time capsules?
Exactly.
It really shows how diverse this field actually is.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that diversity, it's fueled by, constantly evolving technology, too. Take radiocarbon dating, for example.
Okay.
That completely changed how we understand how old fossils are just by being able to analyze how much carbon-14 is in them.
Okay, hold on. Can you break that down a bit?
Yeah.
What is carbon-14 and how does that tell us how old something is?
Yeah, so carbon-14, it's a radioactive isotope of carbon, which basically means it decays, at a predictable rate. So living things, we're constantly replenishing our carbon-14 levels, but once we die, that replenishment, it stops and the decay clock starts ticking.
Okay.
By measuring how much carbon-14 is left in a fossil, we can figure out how long ago it was alive.
Wow. So it's there's a radioactive stopwatch built into every living thing.
Exactly.
That's wild.
I know. And that's just one example. We also have techniques like CT scanning now, right?
Yeah.
That lets us look inside fossils without even, having to break them open or anything. We can analyze their internal structure in 3D.
So it's like having X-ray vision, but for ancient creatures. That's amazing.
Incredible. These technologies, they're revealing details we never even thought we could know.
Wow.
We're even starting to use ancient DNA, not from dinosaurs just yet, but from other organisms, to trace lineages and really understand ancient ecosystems with crazy accuracy.
It's like adding this whole other dimension to the fossil record.
Yeah.
It's kind of mind-blowing to think about what we might discover next, to be honest.
Right.
But with all these amazing tools like the RoleCatcher guide, it also mentions the job market for paleontologists. It's really competitive.
Yeah, that's the reality. There are way more people out there who are passionate about, dinosaurs and all things prehistoric than there are actual jobs.
That makes sense, yeah. So how does, an aspiring paleontologist, how do they stand out? Besides, finding their niche like we talked about.
Well, the guides stress practical experience, like volunteering at a museum, maybe participating in fieldwork expeditions, even assisting grad students with their research, things like that.
It's all about getting your hands dirty,
Yeah.
literally and figuratively, just to build up that experience, that resume.
Exactly. And it's not even just about, making your resume look better. It's about the connections you make, right? You get to learn from those researchers who are already established and really discover what area speaks to you, what you're passionate about.
It's like an apprenticeship, but for the ancient world.
Exactly.
Now, let's dive a little deeper into those career stages that are outlined in the RoleCatcher guide. We talked about the entry-level position, so we're talking about that first rung on the ladder, to becoming a real-life fossil expert.
Right, exactly. The entry-level stage is all about, soaking up as much knowledge as you can, being a sponge. You're out there with those senior researchers in the field, really meticulously collecting and documenting those fossils.
Yeah.
Think of it like a crash course in, the actual hands-on skills of paleontology.
So less theorizing about T-Rex behavior and more figuring out how to carefully, extract a fossilized fern without breaking it.
That's the idea, exactly. You're learning how important accuracy is, attention to detail, really careful documentation, all that. It's about proving that you can be a reliable member of that research team.
Because even the most groundbreaking discovery starts with someone out there, recognizing that maybe seemingly insignificant fossil fragment.
Precisely. And then as you move up, you become that junior paleontologist, right? You take on more responsibility. Maybe you're even leading some smaller digs, or you're starting to really focus on a specific research question that you have.
So less, fetch me my chisel, and more like, hey, I think this might be a new species of trilobite.
Exactly. This stage is a lot of times where paleontologists really start to, carve out that niche we were talking about. You might be, I don't know, drawn to a very particular type of fossil or a really specific time period, even, like a particular research technique.
So you're not just a paleontologist, you're a specialist in, I don't know, the evolution of feathers, or you're an expert in the ecosystems of like the late Jurassic period.
Exactly. And that specialization, that's really what makes you stand out, right? When you're applying for grants, those research grants or those academic positions, it's about becoming the expert in your own little corner of prehistory.
And I imagine that like that specialization only becomes more and more important as you reach, that really, I don't know, coveted senior paleontologist level.
Absolutely. At that stage, you're not just doing the research itself, right? You're often leading these whole research programs. You're securing the funding, you're mentoring all these students coming up, and you're, publishing your findings in like all the top journals, all those really important scientific
So
journals.
you're not just uncovering the past, you're really shaping like the future of paleontology itself.
Exactly. And it all starts with that passion, for understanding ancient life, that willingness to get your hands dirty, and really that dedication to find your own unique place in the field.
And who knows, maybe someone listening out there right now is going to be the one to discover the next Sue the T-Rex, or maybe unearth this fossil site that totally, I don't know, rewrites what we know about evolutionary history.
The possibilities are endless.
Sure.
But what we do know for sure is that every fossil, every single discovery, no matter how small, it adds to our understanding of this incredible planet.
It's true. Well, I gotta say, after this deep dive into the world of paleontology, I'm feeling, I don't know, incredibly inspired. It's a field that's, like, obviously, yeah, it's filled with challenges, but the rewards, the sheer thrill of discovery, it seems like nothing else.
It's one of those journeys, that requires passion, dedication, and a healthy dose of curiosity. But for those who are willing to, to dig a little deeper, the rewards, they're immeasurable.
That's a great way to put it. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the world of paleontology. Remember, those RoleCatcher guides, those are an amazing resource, especially if you're serious about, actually pursuing a career in the field.
Keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and never lose that sense of wonder.
Because who knows what incredible secrets are still waiting out there to be unearthed. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep those brains buzzing.